How does having electric windows sort of change your normal wiring?
Oh, there's shitloads of wiring in it. Because it isn't just like a modern car. You've got a motor with 4 wires coming off of it, which goes to a relay that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wires coming off of it.
Okay.
Right, so the 54, I think it was, wasn't it? Mercury Sun Valley. So all of the inner wheel arches and everything were tatty, all the chassis was tatty, engine was the wrong colour, all the wiring was, some of it was in, but it wasn't right, it wasn't rooted in the right places, and basically it wouldn't have worked. So you had the front wings on it. I've stripped those off because basically there weren't any bolts in it and it was all held on with Sikaflex stuck together, which I don't quite know why they've done that. It isn't, there's no point in sealing that, but there wasn't any bolts in it, it was all just stuck together. So I've taken the wings off, taken the inner wheel arches off to access the engine, taken the engine out, the gearbox out, resprayed all the chassis, cleaned it all up, resprayed all the chassis in the gloss black to match the back that the customer had already done. Painted the engine the right colours. Got to paint the gearbox yet, but I'll do that when I can get it round onto Mark's ramp. These should be painted red, the Mercury, that should be highlighted in red, so I've got to do that yet. Gone through all the boxes of bits, gone through all the photos, found out where everything goes. So you've got your horn relay, your starter solenoid. This clip here is for your 2 heater pipes. That's original, that holds the starter cable. Found the original clips that go across the back of the bulkhead for routing the wiring system. They took the brake servo off and rebuilt that completely. Just generally finding all the bits that go on it. This should be painted black, so I'll paint the cover of that black. It's an aftermarket voltage regulator. It's not the right engine for the car, that's a 312 cubic inch. The customer bought complete distributor rebuild kit, which is over there, but the 312 distributor is different, so that's, we'll have to get some more bits to rebuild that. I found them all, but
they're compatible, yeah?
No, not the bits we've got. Completely different distributor on the smaller engine. I think it's a 285 or something like that, 260 something, but this has been rebuilt. It's got a rebuild tag on it. Repainted the exhaust, found the horns where they go, and like I say, basically rewired the whole thing, but with it all as it should be, you know. So you've got water temperature, I think that one's down there, yeah, that's water. Well no, that one's water, that's oil down there. So you've got your distributor feed, they go up to the heater motor there. That's it basically, everything's in. That's your headlamp wiring for that side, that's your headlamp wiring for that side. Took the dash out because obviously you've got to get into that to get all the wires in the right place. So it's all ready to go back in.
This is electric windows, isn't it?
Yes, all the electric windows, that's all. That's your 4-way switch goes there, that controls all 4. And then you spur off of that, which is all in here, all done. And then you've got a switch either side and a switch on the passenger side door.
How does having electric windows sort of change your normal wiring?
Oh, there's shitloads of wiring in it. Because it isn't just like a modern car. You've got a motor with 4 wires coming off of it, which goes to a relay that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wires coming off of it.
Oh, okay.
So they're actually the back ones, but they sit in there and the other ones sit on the plate in there. So you've got your wires go to that, which is your main feeds, go through the switch, back down to the motor. But you've got to do that 3 times, and then all of this lot you try to get in your main switch block. So I sussed it all out, I know where it all goes, found all the wiring diagrams. Yeah, so all good. And then once the wiring's in, that big cable there goes through the back of the cluster. It's, I can't remember what they call it now. It's the way they work out the battery charging, like your amps, you know, charge or discharge.
Okay.
I can't remember the process it's called now. Basically, it just goes, that big wire just runs through there. That's it, and it picks up resistance somehow. I'm not really too sure how it works. So I've had to redo all this. A lot of this was all trapped underneath where this bolt's on. Yeah, so redone the ignition switch, redone all the indicators, interior light switch there, light switch there. All this is wired up. Got to put the radio back in, the clock back in, because you have to get it all out to get everything out, you know. Because you can't, all of the relays and stuff are all wrong, you know, wired up wrong, so I've taken all them out and redone it all. The way the indicators work on American cars, you've got 2 brake lights, yeah? You put your foot on the brakes, they do that. If you turn an indicator on and that's flashing, yeah, and you put your foot on the brakes, in theory, because it's the same bulb, you haven't got an indicator anymore. You've got 2 brake lights, yeah? In the switch, there's a thing that knocks out that brake lamp, so it allows that indicator to flash, but leaves that brake light on solid.
Okay.
So working those out is quite quirky, but once you get your head round them, they're not too bad. I've got to put the interior light switches back in. The only bit of wiring I've got to do, I'm not sure whether it came out of here or if it's in here anywhere, or whether it just drops down and comes along as the feed for the 2-way electric seat, because you can go up and down or backwards and forwards on it. Cleaned all the firewall up, so it had under seal all over it. As I say, took all the, you know, I mean, this should all go back in. I've got all the rubbers to go back in when it goes in, just seals it off. Don't think the battery tray's original, but that should have a square rubber block on it. My mate's Fairlane's got one. It just pushes in, clips on there, stops the battery hitting that. Well, not stop it hitting it, it's a buffer, you know.
Why do you do wiring first?
It's the first thing to go in before you can put anything in the interior in, because then what I want to do next, finish the wiring, set up all the electric motors for the windows, and then we've got the biggest pain of one of these. You can see that that's all out of line, look, all this is loose. Yeah. So you've got to get all that in. You'll probably find that's actually got to come back to there. So you've got to set your quarter lights up, put your window frames in, slide them up and down, but before you can do the door, you've got to set up all your mouldings under here, all your trim mouldings, put all the rubbers in it. I've started winding that window up, look, you see. Make sure they've got an equal gap, all because you can adjust everything. In, out, tilt. So then you've got to put those in, square them up. There should be a rubber that goes in here, we'll have to order from the States. So once they're all squared, then you get your window sliding up and down to match this line.
Yeah.
That gap there's got to be right, that gap there's got to be right. So it's all, because you also, again, you can go in and out, backwards and forwards, all over the place with them. But until you get all this lot in, so you know exactly what you're doing, you're okay. But then you've got to take all of that back out again once the doors are set to fit all your inside garnish mouldings. Yeah, it's just an awful lot of fannying around to make it all fit properly, you know.
What's the hardest bit about this car, or the most challenging part of it?
Getting that in properly will be hard work.
Well, that's a pretty rare piece of...
Yeah, you won't. I've never seen another one. Yeah, that'll be hard work. The windows, setting them up is very time consuming. Getting them, you can sling anything together, but if you want it right and all the gaps right and everything, you've got to sit there and just take your time and do it properly. Don't Like the wiring, I probably could have got it going, but the way it was trapped all underneath the dash and all that, it would have burnt. So you got to start again, realistically.
The perspex. It doesn't look like it fits.
Probably doesn't. You don't know till you get it all, got the new rubber and you play around with it all, you know.
And because of the material it's made of, is that why it's maybe shrunk or expanded?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's all star crazed, but
how can you do that? Can you warm it up to?
No, no, don't go anywhere near it. You got to, I mean, it'll scratch like hell as well. So any dust that's on it, you got to wash off. Just run a hose pipe over it. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge getting that in there. And the first thing to do in my eyes is, they're not a lot of money, the rubbers for those, is just get that fitted, because you really don't know what's going on. Like there's still a nut in there, look, but there's missing. So you've got to get in there and make the little nuts to go in there and all sorts of stuff, you know.
Where's your play in there
well, the rubber's obviously quite a deep rubber.
Okay. So that's going to cover a multitude of sins, isn't it, really?
I hope so. I don't know, till you get the rubber in it, because see, that'll bring that up. Basically, that line there, yeah, that slope, the roof should be in line with that. So obviously that's going to come up, which will allow that to go back. Until you get the rubber in, you won't work it out, you know. And then be very, very, very careful doing it all up, because if you over tighten one of them, it just split that.
Yeah.
So you've got to be a lot of sealer in it and clean it all up afterwards. And the other thing is setting the heater system up properly. That's quite weird, because you've got your heat control isn't a manual valve. It works on that, which is vacuum, which I've checked. So as you vacuum from the engine, yeah, goes in through the hole over there, the hole in the top of that, to your heat control valve, and that allows vacuum through, or doesn't, and that raises the diaphragm in there or lowers it to let water out of there to feed into the heater.
Oh, okay. So
that's quite a weird, quirky system. Like I say, found all the original clips and everything, so when it's all loom taped up, it'll look nice. Question time.
Okay, Robbery McGough, he says, got a question. I was watching a video and the guy went out of his way to say that the timing mark line goes to the right of the window, not the centre. You started the bike first kick, as did he. What's the right answer? And this is to do with the WLA.
Some people, if you read the original manuals, it says dead centre.
Yeah.
Because you've got leeway on your handlebar, you can tweak it a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
I always set them on straight upright.
Okay.
I've got to get a roll now. Sorry, mate.
That's right.
Yes, I mean, it is fairly critical, but there's so much leeway in everything. I always done them dead upright. I have seen what the guy's talking about on other sites, yeah.
Okay. Benjamin Turano, and this is regarding the Model 41 Buick.
Yep.
I have exactly the same year and model engine. I'm about to fire up for the first time in years, checking the timing since the distributor was rebuilt. What is a safe way to rotate the engine by hand until the number one cylinder is at TDC compression stroke? I wondered about turning the fan, which seems to be a direct shaft connection. Also, do you recommend turning the oil shaft to circulate some oil prior to installing the distributor?
I wouldn't worry about priming the oil pump. What I would do is take all the plugs out and just keep winding it over for a while, and that'll blow some oil pressure up into it. That'll be fine. The easiest way to time one up is take your rocker box cover off. If you can get on the front crank pulley nut to turn that with a ratchet, do that. If not, have another person finger in the plug hole and wind it over underneath. Take the flywheel cover off and just get a pry bar and wind it over on the flywheel teeth. That'll bring it up to top dead centre, making sure on number 1 that both the valves are loose, then you know you're firing number 1, not number 8.
Robbery McGough, again, this is to do with the WLA and WLC. I saw a picture of a Harley that was taken in 1935, and on the front forks it had a third leg coming down. Have you ever seen that before?
A third leg coming down? Might have been J-type forks. They did some funny things. The XAs had another shock absorber built on the side, but that's not like a leg. It's a big, like a car shock absorber. The only other thing I can think of is the Survey cars had a tow bar that looks like a third leg. So they'd go out in a Survey car with all their tools, repair the car, and hook the tow bar on the back of the car, and then tow their Survey car back to wherever. I can certainly look through the books and stuff, but I don't know about a third leg on forks. 1930.
1935.
It's a 36. I think this only goes back to 36. Yeah, 37. Without looking at pictures, but the only thing I can think of is possibly the Survey car with a tow bar. And some of the J models had some funny looking forks. See, that's like a Survey car tow bar, you see? That piece there. So just flip that over, hook it on the bumper of a car and tow their Survey car back.
Oh, okay.
Hence why they were called Survey cars, they were for servicing cars. Without looking into that, I don't know enough about early Harleys to say for definite, but they're the only two things I can think of.
Oh, that's good. Glenn Brown. I've just had my WLC out for a 30-minute ride to break in the pistons and reboard cylinders. I'm a little worried because the wrist pin doesn't want to go in the front connecting rod bushing, and I used a firm push to get it in. In your video you ream the bushing to prevent possible seizing. I didn't do that. The piston was a little stiff when I tilted it back and forth. I guess that could be asking for trouble. Is it fairly common for the wrist pin and bushing to lock together?
It's not common, no, as long as you didn't force it in there. You know, if it was a light push, then it'll probably be fine. It'll just wear itself in, that'll be fine. But I mean, if you forced it in there, then no, it won't be fine. You know, I mean, it's oil splash fed anyway, so it should be okay, as long as it, like I say, there's a fine line between press fit and actually.
If he has forced it in, what would be the repercussions? So what would you say?
It could seize up eventually, but they're not like it's doing 10,000 revs, you know. I would say it'll probably wear itself in,
Alfie Dog says, does Ash ever get fed up working on WLA Harleys, or would he say it was more of a passion?
No, I don't get fed up with them. They're just something I've done a lot of, so I wouldn't say I've got a passion for any motorbikes really, but you just do your job, don't you?
You don't see another Harley coming in and think, oh, another Harley.
Nah, it's just work, isn't it? That's fine.
Next week on the workshop.
Right, well, I don't really know exactly what it is. It's called an Alpen 3. It's for going up mountain tracks apparently, and I think you can probably roll it around on these if you stand it upright.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No.
And taking his greens as his military in some...
I guess so, it might be civilian use as well, I really don't know.